Hey guys, have you ever started a media project or thought about working a media project, tried to figure out how are you going to get your application going and what are the default packages that you should work with? Well, we're going to cover that this week. And that's pretty much the focus of this episode is on the packages, especially the default packages that you should consider using when you are using MeteorJS. All right, I just spilled some tea over at the side here, and that's why my eyes are going crazy just now. In any case, this is episode number 46, and you're watching or listening to This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly news segment of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast. My name is Alim Ghaffar, streaming to you live from New York City.
Everybody, I'm Jan Dvorak, aka Storyteller, coming to you live from Prague.
Hello, this is Jan Küster coming to you live from Germany.
And with that, we'll head straight into the news.
Yes, so there is the very first one. There were some hacks on Twilio users, but only on their telephone numbers. But here is the deal. This affects people that use the Authy Authenticator app that Twilio provides. And this is somewhat concerning because we talked about this some time ago, that why do you need to outsource every crucial part of your application like authentication? And I'm also concerned, why does an Authenticator app, especially when it's using TOTP, I assume it uses TOTP, or does it use something else? I'm not sure why an Authenticator app needs my telephone number, because there are schemes that don't need telephone numbers. But anyway, the good side, or the good news here, is that if you're building your application with Meteor, then we got you covered, because Meteor also provides 2FA out of the box, and then you're on the good side. And just to know, if you heard about the former Twilio hack that was in 2022, it's actually considered the same group of hackers to get these phone number credentials that also already breached in 2022. So it looks like Twilio, I mean, they became very big once they got public, and they're a target. They're just it's like that. They're a big target, and especially because they're in this sensitive area, they are a very precious target, so to say. And so I would assume personally that in the future there will be even more and more attempts on Twilio. And again, in Meteor, you have authentication out of the box, and in Meteor, you also have 2FA out of the box with the respective Meteor accounts passwords or accounts 2FA packages. And there are authenticator apps out there that don't require your phone number. And I mean, why is that important? So anybody of you, can you imagine why it's a problem when the phone number is leaked? I mean, the article already reveals a part of this, but I personally like to avoid giving up my phone number.
Yeah, I would in general recommend use application or something that just does that one job. There's like free OTP and there are others. So, or if you use KeePass, you can just put it in there and have it together with other passwords.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think the suggestion that we're making here, though, is it's probably better for you to control your own users' data than to outsource that someplace else. Because, and I know that the worry is that you don't have the skills or the expertise in order to make sure that you're properly covered with the adequate securities in place and the know-how to deal with situations like this. But Meteor application has been built with their accounts package and the roles package for many, many years now without, as far as we know, any significant incidents of leakage or loss. So, all right. That's all I want to say about that.
Yeah. So, and this is not the only security related article to authentication related. So there is already the next one. So if you heard in the past about the Rockyu hacks, which date back to, I don't know, 2009 or something from this website. There is another Raku hack, and this time it has a 10 billion password leak list. Many of these passwords already occurred on the on other leaks, and lots of them are already in the Have I Been Pawned databases. But this list now adds 1.5 billion more passwords to the list of pawned passwords. And so here's another thing. Of course, a password leak, or if your password is leaked somewhere else, this will not prevent you out of the box with any Meteor package, but Meteor has another package that would help you to also get around this issue, and that's the passwordless package. So accounts passwordless when you don't need a password. So you can log in with just providing an email, and then you get something like a magic link or something, or some other external device sending some login code or one-time code or whatever scheme you want to set up. And then you can log in without any password. And this is very important because, as you might know, these lists, they are increasing, and it gets easier and easier with any additional hardware to try to brute force the remaining passwords, just because 8 characters will not be sufficient anymore soon. And yeah, these lists are used for credential stuffing. You can go through these lists and try as much as possible from these lists, and then hopefully, not hopefully in the sense of the person want to log in with your account, get the right spot. And again, it's up to you how to set up your authentication, but the good news is Meteor got you covered there. That's the takeaway here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, it's always about generating some very random password and have it in something like KeyPass to keep it safe.
Yeah. And of course, there's one caveat to all these things. You're responsible for the data you manage. You hold the data. This is a good thing, but you're also responsible for that. And of course, we want to encourage everyone in the Meteor community to be responsible with the way they design their applications and with the data they use. But on the other hand, if you can rely on your abilities, then you don't have to rely on a third party. And that's sometimes a good one, right?
Yeah, well, the good thing, as Alim mentioned, the accounts packages didn't have any like breach or anything reported in the last 10 years. And the little things that we kind of got early or it got fixed. There's also some additional security improvements. One default has changed going into Meteor 3. So it's coming on improving, and it handles, I would say, all the complexity for you. So then it's just, about being responsible in general with your data and everything. And also, I would say, from the point of view of GDPR, it's about owning your data. And honestly, I would feel much more uncomfortable outsourcing that, because then, if there is a problem, I need to deal with somebody else instead of me just going to database and, trying to, maybe just send, a reset password or something along that way. So
to all users.
Yeah, that's also an issue with OAuth as well. So something I need to consider.
But one thing, and this is also very important, and this is what I liked with Meteor already back then when I first joined the Meteor community in 2015, 2016, was that the whole accounts package already used bcrypt to hash the passwords, because most of these password leaks are still coming from applications that plain text stored plain text passwords. This is totally ridiculous, and in my opinion, if somebody is caught nowadays, any company that is caught nowadays storing passwords in plain text and resulting in the leak, they should be held responsible legally for that. This is totally ridiculous in my opinion, and this is so awesome that I never had to think about implementing this on my own. It was just proven to work, and it works still up to date.
It's a clear point, and it's a fair point. Now, I think there's a little more. Did we get to the handlebars issue yet?
Yes, that would be the next topic. So coming from authentication and security issues, let's switch over to some totally other realm, and that's the front end. So there's a new hot template engine coming up. It exists already since quite some years, but now it gained momentum, and it got posted in Node Weekly, and it's highlighted there, and it's Squirelly.js. And from its looks, it's an interesting approach because it has many of the well-known handlebars concepts, including helpers and these template literals, something like we know from Blaze. And it also comes with some extended things. And this is very interesting because maybe this could be useful as a future of Blaze. We talked sometimes about the future of Blaze, and Blaze still has a strong community in Meteor, and maybe this could be something interesting to the Blaze community within the Meteor community, as keeping up with the ecosystem at the same time staying as it is, because Blaze is used and liked by the people that use it because it works how it works. And it's more like this classic template approach. And Squirelly doesn't look that much of a, how to say, it's not that breaking change from how Blaze works. And if you take a look at each example there, if you can look there, this is actually one of the things that people already love. They're having some more mixed up syntax of being a little bit more not descriptive, but a little bit more imperative syntax to be more flexible in Blaze. This is what people demanded a lot, and it's still something that's still left out in Blaze. And I think, or like friend.first or and pipe to capitalize, these are things that would be awesome to see in Blaze. So maybe this could be something in the future for Blaze to be picked up. And for those who don't know what Blaze is, this is the original front-end engine that Meteor used and still uses and still supports. And this is a very strong handlebars-oriented template engine. And it's separating HTML templates from the JavaScript template helper code. And this is what some people, me included, love when these things are a little bit more separated and not all in one file.
Yeah, two things I want to ask you here, Jan. One is, when you say that this is something that we could use with Blaze, are you thinking of it as a replacement to Blaze, or taking concepts from it and improving Blaze?
That's the question. What will make sense? We all know, or at least the people that work with Blaze and discuss the future of Blaze know, there are still a few showstoppers preventing us from doing a super evolution of Blaze. It's like there is still this strong jQuery backed DOM backend in Blaze, and there are still a few bugs that are really hard to fix because of that. It's very tightly bound to jQuery. And the question is if something like Squirelly would help to get rid of that by, let's say, using Squirelly as the templating engine, because Blaze itself it's an ecosystem of more tools that work together. You have the spacebars, which is an extension of the handlebars that were specifically designed to work with Meteor, but you also have the compiler, you have the Blaze DOM backend, for example, and these all work together. And maybe we could leverage Squirelly, because this also comes with the compiler, and it comes with the backend and its own way of manipulating the DOM. And maybe we can make a marriage between Squirelly and the Meteor reactivity system, and then maybe get rid of these problems. So that's what I could imagine right now. But guys, this is a job for weeks. This is not something I can code at the weekend.
Months, I would say. I think there's also a few things to really put here in the new few features. Is one I think is Express.js support, which especially going with Meteor 3 forward is interesting, and that you can actually change, how the helpers look like. So we instead of the @each, we can still have our hash pound each and all that stuff. So I think it's definitely a nice concept to explore, and much more easier to migrate to something like this, or work with this than, let's say, okay, let's just go to Vue, let's close the shop, because Vue is very different from what is known. So
it's nice to have options though, right? So
yes.
So I just want to add one more thing, because you mentioned a discussion that we had earlier on Blaze. The thing is, we never published that discussion because it was a private discussion that was supposed to precede doing a Blaze panel, which we never actually did. I'm going to reach out right now through this camera out to you guys who were all part of that panel to ask if you are willing to let that frank discussion be something that we publish. And what I'll do is I will give you the link if you want, so that you could check it out for yourselves privately, so that you can review it. And we'll hold off on doing a publish for a week. And then if you decide that you're okay with it, then we're going to go forward. If there are any objections, we'll hold it back. How's that sound? You two guys were in that panel also. So how does it sound to you?
Fine with that. I have been there mostly as an observer and moderator, so not much for me to add.
I personally really would love to see some movement again in the Blaze. And just to jump in here regarding movement in terms of Blaze, I just got notified by Danielson from the Meteor software team that they're about to release Blaze 3 as part of Meteor 3, and it still needs some not only reviews, but it would also be awesome for if Blaze users could test it with their apps. I mean, there are tests. These tests are running and it's all fine. But, usually the devil's in the details, that some edge case you used in your app that worked with Blaze before, and now it may not work anymore. This is something maybe the tests didn't pick up. And so if anyone is interested in seeing Blaze 3, even if it's just getting issues with upgrading to it, I mean, that's already one of the biggest issues we all know from Meteor 3. I mean, that was one of the main topics the recent month here in this show. So if anyone is interested in seeing Blaze 3, please also join the GitHub and help out with giving any feedback on that. I will try my best to do it as well.
Really good. And folks, if you find that you're getting value out of this, there's a thumbs button. It's the invite. It's the like button. Just smash that and let us know that you appreciate the work that we're doing that way.
All
with that,
right.
we should move on to the next thing.
Yes, up to the Meteor news. Originally, this was supposed to be the release week. Sadly, things got delayed, and there has been no official Meteor 3 release. Instead, actually, today we've got release candidate 7, and just a few moments ago, if we scroll all the way down here, you see we have release candidate 8 going live. I am actually right now in the background. I've started the process of updating to it, so I'm just quickly waiting to see if it runs through. There is a lot of bug fixes in this. Most importantly, what is also part of this is the Node 2015.1, which we mentioned last week and the week before, the July security release of Node, which fixes these 2, 4, 5 security issue, 1 high, 1 medium, and 3 low level security issues. So that's now in what's release candidate 8, plus plenty of other fixes. And also, I think last week we mentioned the DDP messages bug. So that's also all in there. From my testing so far, it looks like it resolves some issue, and the rest is on React. So that's there. Speaking of React, let me move this here. I was on during the week in Wrocław with the great people from Vasco. We did some recordings, and also I get a talk about React 19 and Meteor 3, kind of history of the development, all stuff. So you can check that out. The meeting was recorded. And for me, it was like trip down memory lane. I saw a lot of skeletons, how we used to do things. In a way, I'm kind of happy how React has become better, but we have, and especially after I've talked, later on during the meetup with people there, and even here with Jan, we have some quiet concerns of where React is heading. And it's also one reason why I will be exploring things like Solid for the future. On other news, Top IATN got a release with new features. So if that's something that you use, or if you're looking into internationalization of your Meteor applications, then take a look on it. I do believe it's primarily focused on Blaze. For myself, I'm using React INTL, but I will be looking into this as I go forward, because I'm quite unhappy how I'm doing the loading of all the languages, and I have over 20 languages to handle. So definitely, take a look if there's something of interest. Finally, an announcement. I will also be releasing British Uplog release candidate after this podcast. So I would like to actually cool myself a little bit down here because it's getting super hot here. So after that, and hopefully my computer doesn't get fried as well, there will be a release candidate for release Uplog. So far, people had, what we have so far said that it's fine. So we'll see what we can do to move this forward, as we have Meteor 3 coming hopefully on Monday, unless we find some really nasty back last minute. And that's it from the news.
Jan, can I add just one thing to the TAP I18N package here? And this is just a short notice to maybe some people don't know. This is one of the super early on packages. So this is actually not just some package that is around. This is around for ages in the Meteor realm, and this is like, it has been revived like 1 year ago or something. And this is really awesome to see. Like this package, it was already considered abandoned, and people moved away and stuff. And then the author just came up like 1 year ago, like, hey, by the way, I just released a new version of this package and make it Meteor 3 compatible and stuff. And this is awesome. It's just, I just want to say this is just an awesome thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Plus also the INTN, I would put, no matter what you choose, is one of the packages that you should have in your project, unless your project is like super, super local.
All right, folks. I just want to remind you guys that if you want to find out and be notified when we have new content that's been going up, and Kuster, for instance, has been putting some shorts out. He's been putting tutorials out. If you want to know when those things hit you on YouTube and know when to actually go get them, hit the subscribe button. We, I think, are up to 233 subscribers today, which is awesome. We are growing. Thank you so much. We're trying to get to 250 before the end of the month. Like I said, my own private goal is to get to 300 if possible. Let's do this. Let's keep on building this community, folks. All right? Hit the subscribe button. Let's go. All right, I think right now we're going to head into our Understanding Meteor section. This is a sponsored section. Let me get that banner up here. Right? Nope, that's the wrong banner. Okay, this wouldn't be Meteor Dispatches if we didn't have a mess up once in a while. So you know that it's still us and it's not AI. If it gets too perfect, then you know that you hit the wrong place. We've got to have at least one mess up during each episode. So this episode is sponsored, or this segment is sponsored by Galaxy. And Galaxy offers $60 credit for users that are going to use a platform. Just, we have a scrolling ticker down below that has the details. You go to the site, it's a landing page, and you put in the Dispatch's 60 coupon code on the page, and you'll get your free $60 credits. Gives you about 2 months on a standard container. And with that, let's do the segment. Kuster.
Yes.
Let's get going then. Everybody ready?
Yep. I'm not hearing anything.
Welcome to another tutorial in the Meteor Dispatches series. This time we're creating a Meteor React app that contains some kind of a restricted content. And this is something we all know from some SaaS, software as a service, or some web applications with commercial background, that some features are free and some features are paid only. But the question is, how do we going to implement this in the Meteor app? And with this tutorial, we're showing you how to do it. It's easy and it takes about 30 minutes. So you can open your console and just follow along, and then you can see the output right away and continue coding as you want. So first of all, open your console and create a new Meteor React application. For this, we're typing meteor create --release 3.0 -rc.4. This will soon not be required anymore once Meteor 3.0 is out there, but we are using the latest release candidate for this. Then we just enter a name, and this is, we call it analytics. So let's say we create some analytics dashboard where the user gets only information if they're subscribed on the Pro plan. Not big thing, right? And while this is using the React skeleton, as you can see, because React is the default front-end engine for Meteor, but it also supports other front-end engines. And there are other tutorials out there from us that will cover these front ends like Vue, Svelte, Solid, and also Blaze. But this time we're using React. Okay, fine. So let's go into the project. And now we need to implement to add some packages, because these packages are basically the ones required for the permissions. And first of all, we need React Meteor accounts. Yeah, but we also want to use a landing roles. And we're installing these for here. Oh, I forgot, we also need accounts password. No problem, we're adding them. Oh, okay, we need a different version of a landing roles here, but that's not a problem. So if you encounter this, a version incompatibility, let's open our project called analytics. And then there's this file .meteor packages. Let's open that, and then let's use the latest a landing roles, which is 4.00 -alpha.4, which is the latest one compatible with Meteor 3. But we also need one more Meteor package, and this is accounts -password. You can also, instead of using the command line interface, you could also edit this packages file. Both work fine. So these are important, but we also want to render the analytics, and I'm using Plotly for this. I like Plotly because it's really easy, out of the box, zero config, and this totally fits with the Meteor philosophy, having things out of the box, zero config, but always configurable if you need it to behave differently. And for that, we enter meteor npm install --save plotly.js and react -plotly.js. This is a nice wrapper for React, making Plotly available as a React component. So it's installing these packages, and from here, we're basically safe already with our packages and dependencies. This is all we need. and we can easily run this application using the Meteor command and open our browser on localhost 3000. As you can see, by the way, in the command line, you can see that these packages have been updated automatically because we changed the packages file down there, and then this has been picked up by the Meteor build system, and it automatically updates the correct dependencies as you need. Okay, so this is running on localhost 3000, and this is the basic Meteor React application. As you know, when you create a new Meteor application, has some basic reactivity out inside there, but that's it. And if we take a look into the folder structure, then we can see mostly there are some React templates here. This is the app.jsx. This is the entry point for our React application. We have 2 templates in there, hello and info. And we don't want to code a lot here that is not related to this permission system. We want only have one template here. So we delete the hello template out of it, but we keep the info template in there. And as we save and reload, then you can see that the hello template is now gone here. It has been reloaded using the built-in hot module reload HMR. And we only have the info template in here. That's fine for now. But now we want to add some accounts and have some restricted area and so on. And for this tutorial, we use a predefined set of users. We don't want to implement this big user management system now. So we create our settings.json file. This file, settings.json, is basically some kind of a .env file. You may know not .env, but for Meteor, it's just a settings file that is only available at runtime as kind of an environment variable. And we want to create some users here, and not in a way that we do in the production app, because this is not our focus right now. So we create a user with username foo and a default password called password. As you know, don't do this in production. This is just a trick to make this work very fast, to make a proof of concept very fast. And we created 2 roles. We want to create 2 roles here. We want to have the standard role, the free plan, and we want to have another role as a paid plan. And the scope for these roles are called plans. Why is this? Because you could have roles with the same name but under different scopes. Of course, you could also have a global scope. And how this is working out, I will show you in a minute. So let's just continue to write down these roles here. So the username foo will be on the free plan, while the username bar will be on the pro plan. And the scope is, of course, plans. So we have defined these. That's fine. But we also need to integrate them. First of all, in order to make this settings file available for Meteor, we have to run the Meteor application with a different parameter. We have to run Meteor minus settings equals settings.json, assuming the settings.json is in the project root, which is here located in the project folder root. Then it's running this application and injecting the settings file, making it available, of course, only on the server unless you put things in a property named public. But we don't do that here. We want to have this only on the server. And as you can see, when you open the server main.js file, there's lots of boilerplate code from the example repository. We don't want that. This is basically something we don't need here. Let's remove this boilerplate code for now so that we just have this clean setup, import Meteor from Meteor and the Meteor startup. This is all we need for now. And then we're basically writing a very short roles implementation and then continue on the client. So on the server, this is really minimalistic. We first want to import accounts because we need the accounts package in order to create accounts from these users here. I will open this in a second panel so you can see both. Okay, so these users here should be created, but not only the users, we also want to have the roles available. And for roles, we use the previously added package meteor/alanning roles. This is the de facto package for roles and role-based permissions in Meteor, and it manages everything out of the box for you, but it's still configurable if you need it differently. So first of all, we want to create these two roles. We want to create a free role for the scope plans and a pro role for the scope plans. In order to do that, we run await roles.create role async, and the name is free and the scope is plans. This is basically how we do it, and we do the same for the pro role. This is then, and there is no error if you do this every time the Meteor server starts up. This is totally fine. It will detect that these already exist, and then it's fine. Now we want to load the users. So we get the users from Meteor settings. I'm using object destructuring here, so I could also write meteor.settings.users, but I'm using this pattern. It's easy to read for me. Now I'm using a for loop and not for each, because we want to have this async. So I'm using the for loop for const users, username, password, role, and scope. This is basically destructuring this object inside this loop of users. Because we're writing this in a for loop, in a for of loop, we can sequentially loop through these in an async context. So what we do here is we first need to check if the user exists, because if the user exists, we don't want to create it again, okay? But accounts provide something for us. It's called accounts.findUser by username. And then, of course, the username. In these cases, it's either foo or bar. And if it doesn't find a user, then we want to create the user and also add it to the roles. So we write user ID equals await accounts.createUser. And this function accounts.createUser, this always returns the user ID of the created new user. And we want to add password and username for this user. And if there is something problematic, then it will throw an error anyway, but that's fine. So with this user ID, we want to add the user to the existing role we have defined here. So we want to add the user foo to the role free and the scope plans, and then the same for bar with the roles pro and plans. We do that by using roles.add users to roles async, and then passing the user ID and the role and the scope. This is basically what we do here. This is all fine. And then sometimes I like to check these things just by adding some console output here. Let's say not in debug, but info created new user, and then username, role, scope. And let's save this file, and then Meteor should pick this up and automatically run this for us. Oh, there is, oh, created new user, missing roles param. This is interesting. Oh, because there is a typo. Yeah, things can happen from time to time. So I created this user, but now there is a problem, and that is the user is not created again. There was an error adding this user to the roles. This is problematic. How can we solve this? We can solve this by opening the Meteor console. So go into the project analytics, Meteor Mongo. Then it's open the MongoDB console, db.users.remove. I'm just removing them. This is fine. Remove these users, and then I can exit the console, clear, and then let's just change the file to make Meteor pick up the again. Okay, now we created a new user foo with the free plan and create user bar for the pro plan. So our model is now set up. This is fine. We have now 2 users and assigned them certain roles. Okay, but how do we make content only available to the pro user? There is one caveat here. We could now in the client check if this is the pro user and then just render things for the pro user. But this could be circumvented. So we have to do this on the backend level. We need to have data only sent to users on the pro plan. And we can use Meteor methods for that. We can write a method called getAnalytics. And this function basically checks if the current user, oh, of course, it's an async func, sorry. This function checks if the current user is a pro user, and if it's not a pro user, it should throw an error. And we can do that because of the Meteor accounts package just by destructuring user ID from this context of the method. So every method in Meteor has, when the accounts password package is active, automatically the user ID assigned to the method. So that this is part of Meteor's awesome out-of-the-box authentication capability. And with this user ID, it's the same user ID that was used here when the user was created by accounts create user. We can use this user ID now to check if the user is a pro user by await roles.user is in roles async, and then the user ID, and then pro, because that's the role we seek, and the plan's scope. So with this code, we're checking if the current user is a pro user. And as you can see, I had a typo again. It's called roles, and then it's correct. Now, you may ask why some of these methods always have these is in role async or add users to roles async. This is because in Meteor 3, everything is async. And before that, it was sync style using fibers in the background, providing the async functionality. And these are now 2 functions in the same package in order to be backwards compatible. This is mostly it. And if this is not a pro user, what are we going to do? Of course, we're going to throw a new meteor.error, adding a nice error code 402 payment required. You need to be on the pro plan. Okay. So free users will not get this content, and the pro users, they will get some analytics. And I'm making up some numbers now. This is just for proof of concept that you can see that this works. So let's add just a few numbers here right out of the box to simulate something. On the y-axis, some values, some numeric values. On the x-axis, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now we have some kind of analytics data. In a real world setup, you would have this analytics data stored in the DB and now getting crunched and then sent to the user. But that's basically what we want to achieve here. Only send the data to the pro users, and everybody who's not pro user is getting nothing, getting thrown error. Last thing on the back end, and then we go finally to the front end and do some React stuff. We want to have the client be aware that the current user is a pro user. Even if the analytics method already tells us this, we don't want to throw an error all the time. We just want to call the method from the client when the user is a pro user. And in order to make the client aware of the current user's role, we can run Meteor publish, and say my roles, and then in this function, if this.user ID, so if there is a logged in user subscribing to this, because there could also be a non-logged in user subscribing to this by using the browser console, but we don't do that. We just return meteor.roles assignment. Now you might ask, what is meteor roles assignment? I never role assignment. I never heard this about this. This is the underlying collection on the server that stores the roles relations between users and roles. And there is an entry called user._ID. That's basically the field, this.user ID. And with this query or this cursor, we can ensure that the current user subscribing to this will know their own roles on the client. So this is now our backend. This is it. 3 things: a startup method, checking, creating roles, checking if there is a user to be created, a Meteor method that throws an error if the user is not on a pro plan, otherwise returning the analytics data, and a publication to let the client know what the user's current roles are. And from here, we can go into the client now. So I show you the client again. There is nothing really happening right now, but we have to go into the app package here, and then we go into the info. And this shows now loading, and that wasn't what it showed before, right? And I can tell you why, because this is still the boilerplate code here. So we can remove this boilerplate code for now. Let's do it even differently. Let's say on the app.jsx, let's use on the app.jsx one more thing. Let's display a message that you need to log in before it shows you anything. So we import a nice React hook from the Meteor core packages, which is use user from React Meteor accounts. This is one of the packages we added earlier in this tutorial, if you remember, React Meteor accounts. And this contains use user. And this is a very nice way to get the current user reactively while keeping sure that the React rendering logic is working properly. So you don't have to write all the effects and find and fetch and use the tracker, which is Meteor's reactive system, and then combine it with React. You just use the hook use user. And that's the nice thing here. If the user is available, then if it changes from not available to available, it will automatically cause React to re-render as you know it from effects and states and so on. And with this user, instead of rendering info here, we render conditionally. So if there is a user, then we want to render info. And if there is no user, we want to render a simple message. Please sign in to view analytics. Okay, so let's check the page, and then we can see how that's working. So this is the page now. Welcome to Meteor. Please sign in to view the analytics. Okay, let's try to log in. I could write a login form and all that stuff, but with Meteor, it's even easier. So if you want to do some proof of concept work, it's even easier for you. I'm zooming in here a little bit. So you can just open your browser console and then you enter Meteor login with password and then foo and then password. And then as you see, it changed from please log in to loading. And this loading comes from the info template because they're still trying to subscribe to this. outdated thing here, to this outdated subscription, but we don't want that. We just remove that for now, and then we add here like analytics, and then we change this to my roles. And why do I change this to my roles? Because this subscription, which is wrapped in use subscribe, this is the same as with use user. This is a hook that allows us to subscribe to a publication and reactively change based on if the publication is complete or not. And if I go back to server, there is the publication of my roles. That's the name of it. And this is why I'm writing this here. And when I'm entering this, so now, then it's still loading, and it has been updated. That was the HMR, but it has been updated. The publication is complete. You see now this analytics here. And coming from here, we can now basically do the selective rendering of the free and the pro plan differences. So let's say we have a user ID, which we get from use user ID, and then we want to check the role by this user ID because we've subscribed to the roles, and the user ID is used as a relation, and we can determine the current role from there. Of course, we could just render things by the current role, but again, this is not safe. It can be circumvented on the client because users can open the browser console and do anything they want on the client, and therefore we just do this as some kind of UI candy, as user experience support. And first of all, I'm copying this use user, but instead of use user, I say use user ID, which is the method the same as use user, but it just returns the user ID. We don't need the full user object here. And then we can keep that as it is. But now we want to have an effect that calls to the analytics if the user is on the pro plan. We do that by doing const, creating a state, const analytics, set analytics equals use state, and the default for the state is null. And also we want to display to the user on which plan they are. Just they know, but we just want to show here how it's working. So having another state, use plan, use state with a default of an empty string. Okay, and we could here, for example, write in the plan. So if I reload that page, then you will see that it's now empty state plan, of course, because it's still not available basically, but that's not a problem. We use now an effect to call to the Meteor backend if the user is on the pro plan, and then update the states. So if you're not familiar with use effect, I suggest you to watch some React tutorials on use effect, but it's basically calling some externalities outside of this rendering loop based on some dependencies. And our dependencies are right now the user ID, because maybe the user is reloading the page and the user ID is not available yet, then it's undefined. But once everything is set up, the user ID is there. So this might affect if there is a user ID, if we want to re-render. And then the second is, is loading. I see some redundancy here right now. So as you can see, I'm calling is loading here and here. So we don't want to do that. I'm doing a little optimization here right now. So I'm calling this roles sub, and is loading is calling basically the role sub, and then I can remove these. So based on these, whether it's, so if this has changed and the load is complete, then, and the user ID exists, then we want to call the server. And of course we want to get the role first. So If not is loading, which means the subscription to the roles is complete, then we want to access the role. And this is by getting the array of roles.get roles for user ID, and then the scope plans, because there are multiple scopes, but we have the scope plans. And then we get the role. And my IDE just highlights I need to import roles. I just forgot. So let's add this here. Add roles from Meteor/a_landing_roles. And with this role, we can now check. First of all, we can set the plan to the role, because this is what we want to display to the user. Let's check in our browser. Now you can see it's the free plan. And I could easily do something now. I can meteor.log out the user, and you see it changed to please sign in to view analytics. And then I could again log in, but in this time not with foo, but with bar. And then it shows me analytics on the pro plan, because this is the role this person has. And then going back, and then you see it's the free plan. So this is working out fine. We know that this person now is on the pro plan, or might be on the pro plan. So we can call if role equals pro. Then we call the Meteor method get analytics. Get analytics, that's the name of the Meteor method we have defined here on our server. If you take a look here, Meteor method get analytics, that's the name. We're calling this, and then we always get a callback with error and result. And if there is an error, we use console.error for this right now, because of course usually it would implement something like a notification that there was an error, and then you do the logging and all that stuff. But we're only focusing on the permissions level right now. And then if there is data, we set analytics with the data. That's cool. So we have some analytics data here, but now we need to render it. And this is where Plotly comes into place. So first of all, I'm importing the plot. So Plotly is a nice library to render, visualize some plot data. We use react-plotly.js, and then this gives us a React component out of the box. But again, we only want to render this if there is an analytics data, and if there is no analytics data, then we render subscribe to the pro plan to unlock. This can even be improved, but that's fine for now. So if there's analytics data, we will render it. Otherwise, we just add a small message here: subscribe to a pro plan. Okay. And if this is if there is the data plot, then this plot is self-closing component. So this plot gets data, and this data is an object with an this data is an array, and this has an x-axis, and this is our analytics. Oh, sorry, I forgot there is an object in this, because you could in Plotly you could render multiple diagrams in one plot, but we don't want to do that. We just have a single diagram plot. So it's the first object, and then it's analytics.x. And when I'm opening again the method, you can see here, this is what we return, y and x, right? On the y-axis, there are some numeric values. On the x-axis, there are the dates. So x is analytics.x, y is analytics.y. Then we need to define a type in Plotly. If you're interested in Plotly, you can just open the Plotly.js documentation. I will link it in the description to get to know it better. And we use the type scatter and the mode lines plus markers this will basically create a line, and on each value there's like a little marker, and the marker has the color red, like a meter. And there's one thing we also want to add for Plotly, and that's the layout. And this is basically width 320, height 240, and that's it. So for now, this should look good. So we have loaded the analytics from the Meteor method here. We stored it and passed it to the Plotly. So let's open this. And as you can see, the user with the free plan gets just this message, subscribe to a pro plan. So of course, they can't load the data. Even with this user being logged in, I could do Meteor call and then get analytics. But as you know from the previous one, this will throw an error. And you can see here in the error, payment required, you need to be on the pro plan. So even if the user tries to circumvent this, it's not possible. So we can, sorry for that. That was not intended. We can run meteor.logout and then now log in as the bar user. And this bar user now gets access to the analytics, and we render the data here. So summarizing this, there is a package in Meteor called A-Landing Roles. And this package offers you a very comprehensive, very detailed permission system that you can leverage in your applications to create certain restrictions on your user's permission. And we use this for some commercial plans. This is one way to implement commercial plans or implement features that are based on certain commercial plans, and you can do progressive plan-based feature enhancement here. And I hope this was helpful to you. If there are any questions, anything confusing, or anything you haven't understood or you think was left out, please leave a comment and let us know so we can improve for further tutorials. If you liked this, please leave a like, and also please subscribe to the channel, because then you will not miss any other tutorials, any updates. And also we have a weekly live stream on Friday, and I would be glad to see you there. That would be so awesome to get the community back together in our live stream and maybe chat together, have some great time together. Keep up to date with us with the following tutorials. There will be some follow-up things on that. And with this, I wish you a happy coding time and all the best.
And we are back, if we don't forget to unmute ourselves.
Pretty awesome. Thank you, Jan. That was a good one. So we did some interactive banners at the same time this was going on. You probably will not see those banners. Well, you definitely will not see those banners at all when you actually watch the episode again. Well, not this episode, but the standalone tutorial. So pretty happy with how that turned out. Jan, I hope you were too. I think Jan's microphone might be off.
I'm just currently, I'm just impressed by your hat.
Well, you know, I'm trying a different hairstyle, right? I'm trying to do this like wild hair because I'm getting older and my hair is getting thinner, so I want it to be like more full, but at the same time it looks a little crazy, so I figured, you know, I'll put a hat on instead. And you know, there we go.
I mean, we had a safari episode already. Maybe next time we
did.
should do the fishing episode.
Yeah, exactly. This is the hat I wear on the boat. So yeah, this is very perceptive of you. You know. So is there anything else you want to add to this segment before we close it out?
Yeah, just there were some small traps, failures, bugs I encountered, and I hope it shows you that it's part of daily dev. I mean, I did this without cutting, as you have seen. Usually tutorials are like cutted, and you have like 10 segments, and then they're cutted together to make the impression, oh, it works all in one line on the first approach. But I tried my best to make it understandable and not fail. But in the end, there are always these little issues there. And but I hope it didn't stretch the overall content too long and make it exhausting or something like this.
My own feeling, and I mentioned this in the chat earlier, is that mistakes and errors are part of the process of building applications. And I think often with tutorials, we see the perfect path. And, we don't, a lot of younger developers or inexperienced developers don't see the things that you encounter. And so it can be very frustrating to them when they're working by themselves, and then they have an error what to do. So I think some of the things that I found were very instructive, besides the actual tutorial itself, was how you looked at the errors and then figured out what you needed to do in order to fix it and get back on track. I think that's very helpful.
But remember, this is not something you should do in production. So I deleted all users. I just deleted all users. Have you seen?
Yes.
Remove, and then like the empty brackets in there, and then boom, all users are gone. That's totally fine for my new project with 2 users. But if you do that, and especially I know that you can connect your local Meteor application to a remote MongoDB, and never do that with a production DB. You get only in trouble. And I never did that because I wanted to have production grade data, so I copied the database to a staging database and then used that data. So in case it's never destructive.
We should probably
you could do that.
We should probably do a sort of a best practices in like end-to-end development one day. I think that would be very helpful, because a lot of different organizations have a different end-to-end process. But in many cases, a lot of them are actually doing things a certain way in order to ensure that they get quality product out to production. And there are many different ways that you could do this. You could have a separate staging area. You could just have like multiple checks, and you just do continuous deployment out to production. There are different ways, but you want to make sure that you have gates in the way to ensure that the quality of the code that you're putting out there meets some standard.
And I have just one thing to put out to everybody who watched that. Let us know if you want more of this kind, if you want more follow-up tutorials, especially because, I mean, we can create new tutorials with new contexts, new ideas, but we could also create follow-ups from existing ones. Or if you want to see different tags, if you want to see solid or swelty, just as for a change, to get some fresh input on some other front ends, how it's done there and all that stuff. Or if you want to see more with Blaze, I could also provide tutorials with Blaze, no problem.
Yeah.
This is also a little bit up to what people need, because we want to give educational material, but it only makes sense if that meets the needs of the people, right?
So just drop your comments, your thoughts, your comments into the comment section of the episode and let us know what you're looking for if you found this to be good. I'm also curious to know whether or not you thought running the entire tutorial was too long and too much. Like, do you expect to see something of this length in our weekly podcast, or would you prefer us to just pull highlights of the tutorial, show that in the episode, and then you'll consume the entire tutorial separately? So give us some feedback. Let us know. There's a lot of work that goes into putting these tutorials together. I want to thank Jan for doing so. And I really appreciate the work that he's done here, and I hope that you guys do also. Speaking of appreciation, just want to remind you guys that open source is done on other people's dimes, other people's time. And in the case of Meteor is built both by the community and the Meteor software team. So my point here is just make sure that you appreciate and demonstrate your appreciation for folks that are working in open source. Give them a star or however else, if they have a sponsorship page, help them out in some way and let them know about it. Storyteller has a sponsorship page and he's got it up in the background. So if you feel like demonstrating to him that you appreciate the work that he does and want to see him continue doing it, then do so. And coming next week, we're going to be covering Meteor 3.0 finally. What we know.
Hopefully.
And where we'll go. Well, right now, the eyes are on Monday, and we'll see how that goes. And with that, guys, I'm going to say have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Right.